And boy, do we have a show for you tonight. Texas Senator Ted Cruz will be here in moments to respond to his opponent, Beto O'Rourke, who spoke out at a town hall just moments ago. Plus, his reaction to the growing caravan making its way toward our border. Congressman Devin Nunes is here, and he has details of a Democratic operative who harassed him and who was later arrested for assaulting a GOP campaign worker in Nevada. Wait till you hear what this group is affiliated with and this person comes from. And just 18 days out from the midterm elections, Eric Trump is also here, and he's going to tell us why he says it's a good thing his father is the most important factor this election season. But first, the caravan of lies and manipulation. That's the focus of tonight's angle. As we approach Election Day, here's one thing that has become patently obvious. Democrats are uninterested in the things Americans care about most, their prosperity and their safety. Instead of policy prescriptions, Democrats poison American discourse with constant demonization and perpetual intimidation. And in the Kavanaugh saga, we saw that they're masters at producing coordinated, choreographed outrage. After that backfired, Democrats began to panic. Although still favored to take the House of Representatives, things began to shift somewhat after the Kavanaugh dust settled. Stories suddenly began to pop up that Pelosi and Schumer and company were concerned that Latino voters weren't sufficiently enthusiastic in the midterms, which, of course, could doom Democrat chances to take the House. Then, like magic, a few days later, a story appeared out of nowhere about another caravan of Central Americans headed to the U.S. from Honduras.
No lo va a detener. Solo Dios no puede detener. Donald Trump no es nadie. Solo porque sea presidente de Estados Unidos, no lo va a detener.
La situación es bien dura aquí porque no hay trabajo. No hay trabajo y necesitamos trabajo.
A former Honduran left-wing politician even joined the caravan for a time before he was arrested. So what started as a group of 1,600 soon became 2,000 and then 4,000 and apparently growing. Meanwhile, crusading reporters are feeding the narrative that anyone opposed to welcoming these caravanners into our country are cruel, horrible, awful, rotten people.
So what is the GOP strategy? We see it at this point as to push fear and loathing. If you don't vote, the scary people from the South are coming for you. You see that picture? That's what they want you to think all immigrants look like. People laying on the floor, splayed out, not as civilized as you, different from you.
The media's over-the-top slurs against those of us who believe that the system must change and that our border has to be protected, it speaks volumes about their bias and their real motivation, of course, which is to help Democrats like presidential hopeful Julian Castro.
The president continues to fearmonger around the issue of immigration. One of the worst things that's happened in these last 18 months has been the basically state-sponsored child abuse of young kids at the border. This example today of what he says is a caravan, he's picking that and he's trying to make an issue of it to gin up his base. I think that the American people can see through that.
You know what the American people see through? Democrats' phony compassion, politically timed, in a desperate attempt to turn out Latino voters who themselves are seeing the wonders of the Trump economy, record low unemployment, and the best economy in decades. Now, Castro was mayor of San Antonio, and his twin brother, Joaquin, he represents San Antonio in Congress. But I've never seen either of them on television standing for the families of those brutally murdered by illegal aliens, brutally hurt by rape, spousal abuse, child abuse, and as I said, even murder.
Today, crime scene tape, boarded up doors, and broken glass are still outside this apartment on Jones-Maltzberger Road. It was here just yesterday, where firefighters found a badly burned body. Police arrested and charged 20-year-old Ernesto Esquivel Garcia with murder, arson, and abuse of a corpse. News 4 San Antonio has learned U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is now a part of this investigation.
Now, ICE was apparently involved from the very beginning in this story, even before the gruesome murder. Now, back in 2017, Garcia was arrested for a DWI and a misdemeanor criminal mischief after he reportedly rammed his truck into the cars of an ex-girlfriend and her family members. He got an immigration judge, though, to give him a voluntary departure order. Now, would you be surprised to hear that he didn't leave the country voluntarily after that order? A few months later, he was in ICE custody a second time. And a second time, he was given a voluntary departure order. And now, in just 11 days, he awaits his trial for the murder of Jared Vargas. And why aren't any of the Democrats who rail against family separations also railing about stories like this? 55 illegal immigrants found stuffed in a truck, ready to be shipped across the United States. Undoubtedly many to unscrupulous employers. Our open borders, as well as our immigration and asylum loopholes, are enriching the cartels, they're endangering migrants, and they're also making life worse for most Americans beyond the super rich who live in a protected bubble. So how can we allow this to continue and still be a country? Now, of course, not all illegal immigrants commit violent crime, and many are good and hardworking people. But that's not really the point. No American should suffer or be brutalized in order to fulfill the Democrats' fantasy of a borderless society. No American worker should see his or her wages go down because there's an illegal immigrant who just arrived in the U.S. who's willing to work for 40% less. In Donald Trump, we finally have a president who wants to tackle this problem, not just pass it on to the next president the way Obama did. And don't buy for a moment what the left is selling you. Democrats are the ones using this and stoking false fear among the Latinos to try to flip Congress. Again, no ideas, just more emotional manipulation. We welcome and we treasure the Hispanic immigrants in this country who came here the legal way, like Tia from Venezuela, who called into my radio show today.
I was born in Venezuela. I am a proud American citizen now, but I am terrified of what is happening. My mother would have never thought that Venezuela, 30 years later, was going to be a socialist country. And then 5, 8 years after that, was going to descend into a dictatorship. Because once they get in, they change the Constitution, and now they're not even waiting. They want the Supreme Court because they want to change the Constitution, and there goes our country.
There goes our country. We get a lot of those calls on the radio, legal immigrants enraged. Now, we all know the negative changes that open borders and catch and release bring to America. Look no further than to California's rampant homelessness, filthy streets, ballooning welfare programs, crushing regulations. That's what a Democrat supermajority sanctuary state ends up looking like. The president is standing up for you. He wants this to stop. And this morning he tweeted, "We spend billions enforcing other countries' borders as our own has become a joke. Our laws ignored and our generation and compassion exploited." And he said it as well. He said, in addition to stopping all payments to these countries, which seem to have almost no control over their population, I must, in the strongest of terms, ask Mexico to stop this onslaught. And if they're unable to do so, I will call up the U.S. military and close our southern border. That's what his tweet said. Now, the Democrats taking the House will ensure that this caravan of 4,000 eventually becomes a flow of 4 million plus before we know it. This cannot happen. But as we told you last night, if you're still on the fence about what to do on November 6th in the midterm election, just think for a moment about who's in line to chair the important committees when it comes to these issues, like Homeland Security and the Judiciary Committees if the Democrats do take the House. Benny Thompson from Mississippi would take Homeland Security.
You would think the most important Homeland Security problem facing the nation is a handful of Central Americans moving through Mexico. That does not make it so. Better to distract the American people from the real issues facing the department and perhaps from the president's own problems, too.
Oh, and meanwhile, Jerry Nadler would oversee judiciary, which includes immigration and border security. And we know he's far more interested in investigating Justice Kavanaugh than solving our border problem. Come on. Hispanic Americans are smart enough to spot a con when they see one. So I say it's time to walk away from the Democrats' cynical game of identity politics and emotional manipulation and toward candidates whose policies result in higher wages and better security for all Americans. And that's the angle. Here with us now is Kristen Vargas. Her nephew Jared was the man murdered in the story I just talked about in the angle. And Kristen, first of all, I want to thank you so much tonight for being here. I know it's really difficult to do this interview, and this is a horrible situation for your family. And I just appreciate it so very much, because I think Americans need to hear about Jared's story and what happened to him. Kristen, how does your family react to those who say that raising concerns about illegal immigration and clearly what is de facto amnesty going on are just being used, these stories are being just used to stoke fear?
It's completely disgusting and it's outrageous. I also just want to thank you, Laura, for the opportunity to come on your show and for paying attention and caring about Jared.
Tell me about him, his life, his family. I know his mother is devastated. Tell me about him.
Absolutely. I could frankly talk about him for hours, and I know we don't have that kind of time here today, but Jared, beautiful mind, college student here in San Antonio, hard worker is an understatement. He was always working full-time and going to school, sometimes working 2 jobs, and he had an uncanny ability to balance family, friends, work, school, always smiling, just an awesome kid.
Ernesto Esquivel Garcia, I hate to even mention his name. He's up for murder. His trial is in 11 days, illegally in the United States. He's accused of setting fire to your nephew's apartment and abuse of a corpse, burning your nephew alive. How did your nephew know him? Did he know him?
So Jared had encountered this individual at his place of employment. He worked at a high-end bar restaurant here in San Antonio, and the individual that killed Jared was working there under a alias name. As a matter of fact, he has about 9 alias names that we're aware of, using fake fraudulent documents to do so. And so they knew each other for less than 3 weeks, but they met each other through their employer.
And Jared's grandmother is a dual citizen of Mexico and the United States, I understand, and she is beyond furious, heartbroken, as are so many members of your family, losing such a beautiful young man, working hard in this country, only to I mean, this is a death that you wouldn't want to happen to an animal. But this man in this country did this, who should never have been in this country, Kristen. And I think it's so important for you and your family to speak out about those people who are continuing to welcome in all these illegal immigrants. And we don't know what their intentions are. A lot of them are just here to work. And indeed, Garcia was working. But it's not a victimless crime, is it?
No, it's not. And, you know, you call out the fact that he was working, but he was also committing crimes. So it's just really difficult for us to process now from the outside looking into this and just seeing all of the systemic failures as far as coming here illegally, working here illegally, living here illegally, continuing to break laws, commit crimes, and ultimately taking Jared away from us. And we're very strongly positioned that this was a preventable tragedy, a completely preventable tragedy. And I think that that's what's most difficult as we continue to grieve and try to make some sort of sense of this.
Did you hear from any of the politicians in your state? Did you hear from the Castro brothers? Did they call or come visit your family?
The Castro brothers absolutely did not. We have had a very, very bright light come into our world. His name is Chip Roy. He's a congressional candidate here in San Antonio, and he listened to our story. He cares about our story. We've developed a personal relationship with him, and it's been really helpful to us to have someone that actually is advocating for us, understands the issues, and as we explain the fractures that we're seeing as victims, he gets the big picture, and we just trust that clearly we need Chip, but we need more of Chip's too, to help not just put pressure on enforcing the existing laws, but influencing change so this can stop. I mean, our mission, our justice position is to not have one other family go through this complete horror that we're having to go through.
Kristen, I'm going to talk to you offline because I want to try to help your family as well. So I'll be in touch with you after the show, but thank you for coming on. And I don't even know how I'm going to do the rest of the show. This is so enraging that a single American loses a life because of these ridiculous policies. Kristen, please give me my best to your family, and I am so sorry for the loss of Jared. I wish I got a chance to meet him. I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much, Laura, again for this opportunity, and thank you for caring.
I do care. I care greatly, and I'll be in touch with you after the show. And thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. For reaction to this story, in his response to his opponent, Beto O'Rourke's town hall earlier, we're joined by Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, I went long on that interview, and I'm sorry because I probably took some of your time, but this is a great family from Texas. Their lives have been turned upside down and hearts broken. They don't even get a call from the former mayor of San Antonio, who's on TV, talking about this caravan thing and demonizing Donald Trump and all Republicans, and didn't even get a call from his brother, who's a congressman from the area where this kid was burned to death. What is going on in this country, Senator?
Well, Laura, thank you for having Ms. Vargas on and for telling her story and telling Jared's story. It's heartbreaking, it's tragic, and it never should have happened. And you're right that Democratic politicians, they turn a blind eye to the suffering, to the violent crimes that are committed. I was glad to hear her describe that she's been able to work with Chip Roy. Chip is my former chief of staff, and he's the Republican nominee for Congress out of San Antonio, and he's going to make a terrific congressman. And Ms. Vargas should not be suffering this. This individual, this illegal alien, committed multiple crimes, and our revolving door system lets criminals, drug criminals, violent criminals who are illegal aliens stay here. As you noted, he got a voluntary removal order, which he ignored, which is what happens. It's the reason we need to pass Kate's Law, which I authored in the Senate, that says that aggravated felon, violent criminal illegal aliens who enter the country illegally repeatedly should face a mandatory minimum prison sentence, so that violent criminals are not in our communities. They're not taking lives like the life of young Jared,
Senator.
but rather protect.
Yeah, this is a DWI.
Well, you're right, but a DWI, we should have deported him when he committed a DWI. When he was arrested, he should have been put on a plane or put on a bus and sent back to the country he came from. We shouldn't be releasing illegal aliens who commit DWIs.
No,
and I've met too many Texans, too many people who've lost loved ones to illegal immigrants who are criminals, who commit DWIs, and it's wrong. And we need to protect our country, not allow criminals and drug dealers to come into the country illegally.
Senator, you did a fantastic job in the debate the other night with your opponent, Mr. O'Rourke. He was at a town hall earlier tonight and said this, and I'll get your reaction.
I decided that I could either spend the rest of the debate responding to every single dishonest thing that he said, or I could make sure that everyone understood exactly what he's doing. I said, look, he's dishonest. It's one of the reasons that he got tagged with this nickname, and that nickname resonates because it's true.
Yeah, obviously the Lion Ted nickname, which was unfortunate from the primary. But now I guess he's quoting the president in order to make his case. I mean, it seems like there was no there there. I mean, I watched him. He's a good-looking guy. There's no there there. There's no, like, where's the beef?
Well, you can see the desperation in that debate where he was insulting me, he was attacking me, he called me a liar. What's striking is what he was responding to when he screamed liar. Is I pointed out that he voted in favor of a $10 a barrel tax on every barrel of oil produced in the state of Texas. And his response is not to engage in substance, but simply scream, liar, liar, liar. Well, you know, facts matter. And we put up on our website, tedcruz.org, the exact text of the resolution that Congressman O'Rourke voted on. President Obama proposed a $10 a barrel tax on oil. Congress, the House of Representatives, brought up a resolution saying we don't want a $10 tax on every barrel of oil. And O'Rourke voted no. And his response is just to scream liar. And then that's not honest.
Senator, we're out of time, but we enjoyed that debate. I wouldn't want to debate you any day of the week. No thanks. Good luck, Beto. It's not going to happen. Great to see you, Senator. Thanks so much.
Every TV doctor knows nothing's more important than a good.
You know, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them.
It seems that some Democrats have been taking suggestions like that from Eric Holder quite literally. A hostile Democratic operative with ties to George Soros and a long history of harassing Republicans has been arrested for battery against the female campaign manager of a GOP candidate. For details on this, we're joined by Fox News correspondent Trace Gallagher. Trace.
Hey, Laura, the man in question is Wilfred M. Stark III, known very well on Capitol Hill as Mike Stark. He was arrested in Las Vegas for assaulting Kristen Davison, the campaign manager for Nevada GOP gubernatorial nominee Adam Laxalt. Davison says Mike Stark grabbed her and yanked her arm and refused to let go. She told authorities the attack left her traumatized and horrified, but for Mike Stark, it might have been another day at the office. He's a reporter for American Bridge 21st Century, a liberal organization founded by David Brock, who also founded the liberal watchdog group Media Matters, and funded by billionaire George Soros, famous for giving money to liberal political causes. After Stark was arrested, American Bridge fired him for his bad behavior, but sources say they also hired him for his bad behavior. Con Carroll, the communications director for Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee, told Fox News that during the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, Stark followed, filmed, and harassed Senator Lee in the basement of the Senate building. Carroll also tweeted, quote, "I've known Mike Stark for literally over a decade. This is who he is. American Bridge knows who he is and what he does, and they hired him accordingly." In fact, sources tell Fox News that when Stark was arrested for assault in Vegas, he told police that this was, quote, his job, and he does this for a living. That prompted Kentucky Senator Rand Paul to question whether American Bridge was propagating this, quoting, "Soros paid protesters arrested. Same group operates inside congressional office buildings. Are Democrats paying to incite violence?" And Stark's resume highlights a violent past. He was convicted for disorderly conduct after aggressively approaching Virginia GOP gubernatorial candidate Ed Gillespie back in 2017. And earlier this year, he was arrested for assaulting a female staffer for Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke. American Bridge has not responded to whether it knew about Stark's criminal past. Laura.
Trace, thanks so much. And California Congressman and House Intel Chairman Devin Nunes was also harassed by this man just a few months earlier. Congressman Nunes joins us now. Congressman, now, how long was this Stark guy bothering you? And have there been any others harassing you in a similar manner? Because this is the new tactic of the Democrats. Get in your face, hope to, provoke you, get an inch from your face or a centimeter from your face, and then see what flies.
Yeah, they've been doing this to me and many of my colleagues, Laura, for the better part of a year and a half. Anybody who was involved in the Russia investigation at all, we were harassed. This guy in particular actually went to our office numerous times. He would follow me in. He'd get in my face. He'd show up at committee hearings. He even showed up at a place downtown in Washington where I was giving a speech one time, and including he actually showed up at the airport one time. And so we had to have the Capitol Police come several times because he would harass me, he'd harass our staff. And look, this is not the way we should operate here in the United States of America. People should be frightened of this. Nobody's going to want to do these jobs if you have to deal with guys like this, right? Like for me, I'm fine. Like I'll fight back. But look at how many people that maybe are thinking of becoming a judge or Supreme Court judge or run for office. With these lunatics running around like this, funded by billionaires who should know better, this is not the type of activity we want to see in this country.
Well, when you say you're going to fight back, that's the point, though, right? You really can't unless they touch you. If they touch you, they can just grab your hand. That's an assault. So then, if you're in legitimate fear of your life, you can respond. No, look. I mean, if someone ever comes up to my family or touches one of my kids, good luck. I mean, mother tiger comes out. But it's not gonna happen. Okay, so it doesn't bother. I mean, people like get in my face. Just go ahead. I mean, I have plenty of plenty of jokes that I can throw back at you. But you're right. This is meant to intimidate people who might not, be like you and I, away from politics altogether. And George Soros, we cannot underestimate the power of his billions of dollars funneling through these David Brock groups and run by David Brock, whether it's the Media Matters group or whether it's this American Bridge group. At some point, is it time to investigate their 501c3 or 501c4 status? I mean, is this the type of legitimate speech, or is this just targeted harassment?
Well, look, this gets to the heart of campaign finance reform. We last had that under George W. Bush at the beginning of his term. And what this has led to is absolute chaos where billionaires can come in and feed these guys. So does something need to be done about this? Yes. But, unfortunately, the Republicans, we're not going to get involved in that type of behavior. And I think the Democrats, until they're taught a lesson, they're not going to change. They see this working. They see their protesting, their harassment, all of this. They see it as working. And I hope it backfires this fall. And I think a lot of people are slowly waking up to the fact that this is not the type of behavior we should have in our political system.
Well, you live in a beautiful state. California is a beautiful state, but it basically has a supermajority Democrat control of the state legislature. Obviously, all the senators, governor, at least for now. The rest of the country, what do we need to learn from California? Because people say what happens in California will come to your state eventually.
Yeah.
So what shouldn't people want other than the beach and the beautiful agriculture and all of that and the mountains and so forth? But what else don't the American people want?
Well, what you're seeing happen in California today, Laura, is you're seeing massive homelessness. So because of our weather, because we don't arrest people, because we don't put them in jail, because we let them get away with everything, we have massive homelessness all over this state. And it's really people who are, sad because they're burnt out on drugs. They've got a lot of mental problems.
And a lot of illegal immigrants on the streets, correct? There are a lot of illegal immigrants in a lot of the tent villages as well in L.A. and so forth.
Well, it's tough to know who they are or whether they're legal or not legal, but I will tell you that when you get to it's not, people think that it's just San Francisco and they hear about the feces on the street, which is absolutely disgusting, and it's true, but you see it all over California in any city or town that you go to or visit.
Congressman, before we let you go, apparently some of your opponents think it's really funny to put signs around your district written in Russian. Okay? Nunez должен уйти. So Nunez должен уйти means Nunez got to go, basically. That's what that says. I speak Russian, so I can translate the signs for you, but I'm not sure most people in your district are understanding the Russian. So I think the joke is I'm not sure the joke is actually going to be very effective there.
Well, I think the point on that, those signs that the people need to understand is those are also being put up by the same people that are funding this Stark character. So the billionaires are funding protesters, they're funding movements, they're funding crazy billboards. The best part about that billboard, though, is I have a 98-year-old grandmother who has our family farm here, lives on it. She's been harassed by reporters and other wackos that have shown up at her house. She lives by herself. And the other day, she told me that she was driving down the freeway and she saw some of those signs. She actually thought they were mine. So I think to some degree, they're benefiting me to some degree.
Yeah, that's not a bad picture of you, Congressman. I take all the FaceTime you can get there on the billboards. All right, Congressman, we got through a whole interview and we didn't even talk about Rod Rosenstein not one time. So I think that's got to be a record with you. But we'll await it next time. Congressman, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, despite not being on the ballot, the 28 midterms are all about President Trump. Eric Trump is here next on why he thinks that that's the best scenario possible. Don't go away.
On my hot water heater.
As the midterms fast approach, the numbers speak for themselves. Regardless of whether voters say they're supporting Republicans or Democrats, the one common denominator in their decision is President Trump. So is that good news or bad news just 18 days out from the election? Joining me now to discuss is Eric Trump. Eric, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, Laura, how are you?
I'm great. Now, thanks for being here. Now,
Great
your
show.
father was on the campaign trail tonight in Montana. Do you think these visits are helping boost the enthusiasm in some of these tighter races?
There's no question about it. I mean, look at the audience he has. It's incredible. He'll go to Montana, he'll have 20,000 people show up. He'll go to Nevada, he'll have 30,000 people go up. I mean, people are excited. People want to get out there. I mean, there's the energy in those rooms is nothing short of incredible. And listen, he has a lot to tout, Laura, right? We have the best economy that we've ever had as a country. We have the fastest GDP growth, the lowest unemployment, the stock market's booming. Consumer confidence is through the roof. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But, I mean, he has a lot to boast about. He's doing an unbelievable job, and our country is back. We haven't seen this in a very long time, but our country is back.
And, Eric, when you see the hostility, despite all of what you just laid out, the hostility out there, I'm going to play a clip of a total lunatic ripping down Ted Cruz signs. We had Ted Cruz on earlier, but we didn't have time to play this for him, so we'll play it for you. Let's watch.
I have bought 100 of these. I'm about to put more out.
Cool. All right.
I hate Ted Cruz. I hate Ted Cruz. I hate Ted Cruz.
That's kind of sums it up, doesn't it? They're either clawing at the Supreme Court door or, I guess, ripping other people's posters down and signs.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the lack of civility I talk about all the time, it's unbelievable. I saw that earlier today, and listen, that helps. Honestly, those people are so radical. No one can relate to them. I mean, no one can relate to them. You saw that guy last week who had his pickup truck burned because he had an American flag on the bumper and a Trump sticker on the bumper.
Yeah, we had him on.
Right? You had that person, as you said, clawing at the Supreme Court door. You see Ted Cruz and his great wife, Heidi. They're getting yelled at dinner. I mean, I could go on and on, but when does this end? And, Laura, Americans don't want to see this stuff. That's not who we are as a society. I mean, that is a rogue faction, but the left has gone so far left, they've become so radicalized that they think this is acceptable behavior. When you have Eric Holder going out there and saying, you know what, when they're down, let's kick them in the head. And Hillary coming out and saying, the only time that we're going to be civil human beings is when we win again. I mean, why didn't you win in the first place? Right? Your message didn't work. You weren't effective. You weren't doing the job. And you had a person who was much better who came in and beat you handedly. And so, Eric, I mean, it's really a shame.
Eric, one of your father's favorite people out there of all time, I think, is Rosie O'Donnell. So she mixed it up today with Nicole Wallace. Let's watch.
He wants to send the military to the border, so.
I want to send the military to the White House to get him.
Gene.
Well, I don't think I can top that,
friend.
but that's actually a pretty good idea.
It's a good idea. So they're either blowing the White House up or they want to take the military and take him out of the White House by any means necessary. I guess it's a joke, but it's not all that funny.
No, it's not that funny. When only you actually forgot about Rosie, she pops back into the scene. It's every 2 months. It seems to cycle through and through and through. It's kind of amazing how that works. But, this isn't what people care about. I think we're going to do very well in the midterms. People have to get out there and vote, right? It's the most important thing in the world. But the country is back, Laura. I mean, we are winning by every single metric. It doesn't matter if it's our military. It doesn't matter if it's our economy, ISIS, immigration. I mean, America's winning. People have jobs again. Salaries are going up. 401ks are through the roof. I mean, that's what people care about, not.
But the left is, these people want to sow chaos.
You're right, because they don't have a message.
Yeah, they have no message.
They don't have no message. They stand for high taxes, right? They stand for banning plastic straws, right? They stand for going after law enforcement and total anarchy. That's their message. That's
abolish ICE. That's their other big platform. 200 Riverside Boulevard, a Trump condominium, a beautiful building.
Yeah.
The Trump name now taken down from that building. What is that all about? I mean, you're in the business of running this company on top of everything else that you have going on in your life, your family, everything else. But that just seems like hate. Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's the nastiness of politics. It's a byproduct of the nastiness of politics. We've been out of that building for a very long time. We sold out. It was a great success. My father literally rebuilt the entire west side of New York City. You probably know the old railway yards, and it was a major success. But, you know, this is the byproduct of the nastiness of politics. You have one person who doesn't like you, who sits on a board, and, you know, what they can do is pretty unbelievable. But again, we've been out of that building for a very long time. It doesn't hurt us at all. But it is certainly the byproduct of exactly what we've been talking about the entire show, that radical left, that nastiness, and it's going to be defeated. It is absolutely going to be defeated.
It's almost like the better the country does, the more unhappy and bitter they become.
Because they realize they're losing. They realize they're losing, and they're lashing out. They all got it wrong, Laura. You know this better than any person in the world. They all got it wrong. The New York Times election morning gave my father a 1.9% chance of winning. 1.9% chance. And he won easily, right? And so what do? They double down, and they double down. And Laura, I promise you, and you know this, they're going to get it wrong again, and they're going to get it wrong again. My father's going to go down as truly one of the greatest presidents in the history of this country. This country is winning again. We're back, and I could not be more proud of him.
All right. Thank you so much, Eric, for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. All right. Well, we've been highlighting the recent spate of attacks on Republican candidates, campaign workers, offices, and up next, we speak to a Minnesota candidate who may be the victim of the worst attack yet. His story when we return.
They're not going to be able to go to a restaurant. They're not going to be able to stop at a gas station. They're not going to be able to shop at a department store. The people are going to turn on them. They're going to protest. They're going to absolutely harass them.
Now, that threat from Auntie Maxine has now extended to include people who are running as Republicans. Now, there have been at least 8 violent attacks on Republicans just this year. Republican politicians, their staffers, and their offices where they work have frankly become a recurring target for political violence. And one of the more recent cases out of Minnesota might be the worst one yet. Local House candidate Shane Mecklin was out at a restaurant when a man approached him, punched him in the face, leaving him concussed. He was knocked out. Mecklin is still recovering from the incident, which he believes was politically motivated. Shane joins us now. Shane, tell us a little bit about your assailant. Did you know him before the assault?
No, I did not know him. And I walked into this place to inquire about renting or using a banquet room that they have for a political function for the Republican ticket in our area. And the owner was not there, but somebody said, how's the campaign going? So there was a conversation. Several people throughout the time would come and go, but this gentleman did eventually come around, and there was conversation with him. It did not seem bad in the beginning. And then somebody to my right started talking to me, so I looked away. When I heard this out of my left ear, this guy say, "You bleeping people don't give a bleep about the middle class," and he literally punched me somewhere right about in here, which I was in a chair, which had sent it flying backwards. When my head hit the floor, that was the last thing I remember. I was told by one of the witnesses that he then, this is a very big man, 6.5 feet tall at least, and probably somewhere between 270 to 300 pounds, with very big hands, I might add, that he jumped down on top of me, and apparently he wasn't done, but luckily the folks nearby were able to pull him off and throw him out.
Okay, so so now he has not been arrested, and you do believe this is politically motivated, targeting you because you're a Republican? Did you know he was following you? Like, how would he know that you're going into this banquet room? I'm not questioning. I'm just trying to figure this out.
No, when I walked in, there was a group of people around. So, and the one gal, she brought up, how's the campaign? So it started with this younger man saying, campaign for what? And then he told me his story. He actually got a yard sign from me that we went and put in his vehicle. And then as he went away, this other person moved in, and we started talking. He actually took my lit piece, and we shook hands prior to all this. And then this comment comes out of nowhere when I'm looking away, and this I never saw it coming. The doctor said it might actually been in my benefit on one hand because I would have tensed up and he probably would have done a little more damage. But
and do you feel like the threats? Hold on. Do you feel like the intimidation and the call to get in people's faces? You just heard Auntie Maxine Waters. Is that fueling this violence?
You know, I actually put that on Facebook in a response to somebody sending me well wishes when they heard about this. Her name, Hillary's name, and Eric Holder in a local paper, and literally tore me apart and said, insinuated how would their comments affect rural Minnesota. So I don't know if they don't think we have TVs or radios out there, but it's obviously very much tied together. They are stirring up the pot with people, and I personally, you know, did not sign up to get sucker punched and then knocked out. I don't wish a concussion on anybody. This is one of the most awful things I've ever had happen to me, and I certainly don't want this to be the environment my 12-year-old daughter is brought up in going forward in life. I mean, up here in Minnesota, we have a lot of really close races, and we have a DFL governor who's going on sanctuary state versus our Republican who's completely normal and less taxes and less government.
The idea, Shane, that Minnesota will elect this left-wing Democrat governor, forget about it. Minnesota, you got to wake up. I mean, if this kind of attack on a guy running for District 15B at a rural area, this is just okay now? This is what the Democrats have come to? This is insanity. I hope you are okay. I know you're not really able to go out campaigning now because of this injury. Shane, please feel better. Take care of yourself. Get surrogates out there to campaign for you. But you need to pull out a win, okay? And we're sorry about what happened to you, and stand strong. All right, we have highlighted numerous cases of conservative censorship from big tech on this show. But this could be the worst. A triple amputee Air Force vet is here next. He's going to tell us what Facebook did to him and to his family. Next.